So, guys, I'm back with another interview from the ETS, and this one's with SooNo, or SooNo. I apologize. SooNo, you want to say hi?
You're right. What's going on?
He he played this deck on the 14th on ETS of April, April 14th ETS, and it's a very interesting list. I believe you came in second?
Yes, I got crushed in the finals by now our SPG fellow teammate Trumpets.
Yeah, it was real. I was wanting a reverse sweep because that's what happened with you in the quarterfinals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a different take on a deck a lot of y'all have been seeing on the ladder. Moment of Creation, but instead of playing Primal, you went with Shadow. What made you play this style of deck over the Primal version?
Well, I had started off by gaining a little faith in the three-color combination of Time, Fire, and Shadow with my other teammate's Second Blues Dark Heart deck that Chow Roland had played, and then with everyone else jamming the Moment and people having faith in that, kind of made me want to revisit the old version of the Moment deck that had Shadow in it for the hand control and better removal spells and all that stuff, and ended up paying off.
Yeah, we were talking about before, this really felt like before the set 3 came out, a lot of people were on this Moment of Creation style deck, and it doesn't seem like it got any worse, with World Bear Behemoth coming out, and then also the campaign bringing in Cold Blood. I don't understand why no one went back to this, but obviously it's still good, and it paid off for you. After playing in the event and the top 8 and everything, what would you go if you played this Saturday, or in the future, what would be the changes right off the bat you would do, or is there any you would?
That would be, honestly, it's going to be kind of rough to just change something right off the bat, because from playing it how it was, the main board had definitely felt pretty tight to what I would want it to be. The only thing that was up in the air to keeping main deck was Stray into Shadow, and then everything else just in the dark I would probably leave as is, but the sideboard is something of a different specimen because that was built at 6 a.m. the day of the tournament, and well, I mean, it's just a whole bunch of random cards that felt like they should be included somehow.
Yeah, we'll get to the sideboard, but yeah, I was going to ask you about some of those numbers. So we just got done talking about the strays. Did you mean to put in another board wipe or life gain or something of that nature, like Devastating Setback or Extract in that spot?
Well, I was in testing when I had played this deck. I built the deck and I played a couple of games with it on ladder. It felt pretty solid as is, but the card that I was bouncing back and forth on was that 2 slot with the strays, and it was between that and Devastating Setback, that being another board sweep and cheaper, able to answer what decks were around at the time, the Grenadins and Yetis and stuff like that. But with Stray, the -4/-4, keeping creatures at negative toughness against Scream decks is actually slightly relevant, and when you do get to catch something, a Scream deck that late with a Stray, it's much more backbreaking than a Devastating Setback.
Fair enough. I didn't even think about that. The thing I was thinking of more or less was your mid-range Justice decks that have 3 on the back end where Devastating Setback doesn't get them.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it's really good there too with the strays and everything. But having in Cold Bloods and Banish, you don't have to too much rely on the sweep. But there again, Stray in the Shadow, even though when you don't have to rely on it, and it's able to pick up the 3/4 flyer that stops weapons and all the other X3s, it's just a double bonus type thing.
Cool. So here's the main board. We'll come back to it in just a second and discuss a couple more cards in and out, but we've already kind of talked about the sideboard, so let's just go to that. Alright, here's the sideboard. So right off the bat, this is what got me wanting to do this interview with you. And I was a little disappointed. I don't know if you heard my commentary on Saturday or not. that your deck is beautiful, by the way, with all the premiums, but
Oh,
I was upset for not having Hall of the Lost King premium.
oh yeah, yeah. See, now that's I can't make that foil before I make my In Cold Bloods. So I am upset too that they are not premium. But
Well, see, here's
I think
someone brought that up as a good point. Someone was talking about, well, he doesn't have these done. I would do these first. I'm like, well, yeah, but you'll always have a chance to play in Cold Blood in a tournament. Like, when can you say you'll have another chance to play Hall of the Lost King? It's like one of those. You could probably be the only one to say that Hall of the Lost King was played, and I got to play with it premium. You might not ever get a chance to say that.
I am unable to say that I was the first person to play premium Hall of the Lost Kings and do well with it, because I am the first person to take Hall of the Lost Kings to the top 8 at least.
So, we were talking about Stray and Devastated Setback. Can be changed. It seems like you've got some of the sideboard. So, I was going to ask how you got across all these numbers, but 6 o'clock in the morning, I've been there doing the whole sideboarding and just...
I mean, there's some reason and rhyme to the numbers that I have here, and I know why I put them there, but when I explain the reasons, they're a little bit goofy. I remember why with my reasonings, but man, thinking of them, they're a little bit odd.
Well, let's go over them. I think everyone wants to hear the goofiness. So right off the bat, we got one boar. How's this card performed for you?
Honestly, I didn't even get to cast it one time. I brought it in against I think 2 weapon decks that I played against, and I brought it in against the Chalice deck just to have an extra removal for Chalice, just in case, and to get rid of something else. And I just didn't even get to cast it. I'm assuming that it's just going to be fine in any position, because it's a 1-drop card in the weapons variants that can kill dice shows and can kill other things that where banish can't, and your actual removal spells just do nothing in those matchups. So the boar, I'm gonna go ahead and say, is just fine.
Do you think it would be ever relevant not to play Ruin over Fast Spell? Because I know boar in the primal version, you have the ability to strategize to the bottom, but is it just the creating another spell, being able to put it in the graveyard for the moments to be bigger? Is that more relevant than having it as a fast spell?
Well, the fast speed. See, I'm a big fan of In Cold Blood over Death Strike strictly, just because of the Justice thing. Even though it does have fast speed, but same reasoning here is that the value that the boar is just could potentially end up creating, rather than, oh, I'll kill your dice show instead of me taking 4 or me taking 8, or I'll kill your Rune Hammer instead of me taking 4. It's just your life total is somewhat relevant, but it's a resource, so you have to kind of use it when you're able to, and if you're able to take that 8 or whatever it is, then just take it. Next turn, kill the thing. But if you were to come up in a situation or a matchup where it's just a bunch of weapons or a weapons deck, and you're sitting there and you have a 1 of Ruin in your sideboard instead of the boar, you're going to probably get embarrassed, and you're not going to be able to do all too much turns after when they have things with Aegis on them, or they have multiple weapons on creatures, and you're like, well, I could kill this guy with the Ruin, and then I'm still taking 4 from this other one. Hopefully I just draw another removal spell. Granted, your deck is chocked full of removal, but you can't always just bank on you yourself having everything. So
Fair enough. Or, boar can answer multiple things as being only a copy of in the sideboard.
yeah.
I see the Force Sabotage just for your control matchups. I don't see too much argument of why not to play that card. Just it's really good, right?
Yeah. There was it used to be 4 main deck, but I actually trimmed 1 to fit room for a Mystic Ascendant, so
Gotcha.
just had to switch a 1-drop for a 6-drop.
The justification there, I like to draw cards, so I'm always a fan of
Yeah, right.
So you have no Annihilates main board. You got 2 in the sideboard. Is that just to have extra removal, or was there something else you wanted, or just it's always good to have Annihilate?
Yeah, it is always good to have Annihilate's an insane card. It's a 2-drop instant speed. Granted, I was just saying instant speed's not that impressive, but when you do get to 2-drop instant speed kill any big time deck creature, it's amazing. You just want it, and you get the added bonus of, well, if I play against mid-range aggro deck or whatever it is, and they have a bunch of monocolored units, I can still bring it in and it's fine. And you end up being able to do so, and you don't ever feel bad about it. So it's just a overall average good card that's always should be represented if you're playing Shadow, I feel.
Yeah, it's really good for like you know, I wouldn't say underplayed card like costed like Sandstorm Titan. Annihilate allows you to do two things in a turn. For instance, if you have the chance to play like Heart of the Vault, you might want to play Sandstorm Titan if you know that you're going against a Carnosaur, and you can kind of bait that Carnosaur killer play out and have enough for Annihilate. Annihilate's really nice at being an instant speed and also not being too harsh on your power for the turn, allowing you to do multiple things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then for Banish, you know, Banish being able to kill a lot of the weapons, especially Chalice, you know, Runehammer, things of that nature. And then just being able to kill a lot of units, that's really good. So I'm assuming that's just for the fourth copy, just to round that out.
Yeah, that's really honestly Banish and Cold Blood are the all-stars against like the Justice aggro decks. It's just because of like the value they're able to accrue, and then Banish is able to get 2-for-1s fairly easily, so it's just a very powerful card against those decks.
I like Banish a lot right now, especially with the Trader in AP that gets under Vanquish and everything. Like, I just like it. 2 devastating setbacks, more board wipes, while being able to have the ability to, you know, be a card for a control matchup. Do you bring this card in?
Yeah, see, this was the tricky thing that I was realizing with this sideboard, with like needing to sideboard for control, is that control aggro mid-range. It's a sideboard for everything, we'll say. Is that the deck kind of needs to like shift gears when it goes to sideboard for control and mid-range decks, and the control matchups are way trickier than the mid-range decks. Control, you really almost, where's my list? I'm gonna say nearly 40% of my just main deck is almost just dead, or it's just embarrassing against a control deck. And then when you go to your sideboard and you're like, well, I can't really just sit here and have 14 cards for control and then just say hopefully my opponents do nothing when they're playing aggro and mid-range. So Setback is a card where I could bring it in against control. I could bring in 1 just to have a 5th sabotage of whatever else. But there's so many cards from my main board that I want to take out that you just end up bringing in some mediocre cards as in Devastating Setback against control, but it's just a 3-drop sabotage in that slot, to where Strain of Shadow is just literally nothing. In Cold Blood is just literally nothing. Banish is just literally nothing. Torch is just literally nothing. So like cards like that, you kind of have to find a middle ground type ability with some of these cards that are great in certain matchups, mediocre in others, and you aren't embarrassed to bring them in, really.
Fair enough. Like,
where I'm embarrassed to have a Torch against like Feln and stuff like that, and so.
Yeah, fair enough. Like, just being able to not have dead cards and actually feel like you can actually play the game has a huge payoff.
I didn't go to the 4th Stray instead, for the fact being that if I do want to bring in these sweepers against very aggressive decks, if there were any that I would be playing against, I would want my sweeper to cost 3 because they're just going to be on X1s and X2s. So Stray is kind of just way too slow, so I kind of still wanted Setback.
Okay.
In some sort of numbers, at least.
So, okay, I gotcha. Statutory Maiden. What matchups did you like this card in, and which ones did you bring in? I'm a fan of the card. It's one reason why I played Second Blue's Dark Heart list, because they had 3 main. But yeah, what was you bringing this in for?
Maiden, I was bringing in really for like the aggressive mid-range decks or any other mid-range type deck, because the deadly and the ability of making cudgels and removing their creatures from the graveyard is relevant in some situations. You could bring it in against the Scream deck and you're not too sad about it, but you don't have too many creatures to be putting these cudgels onto. But I mean, your guys are pretty like resilient in some sort of ways, so once you do get two guys down, your cudgels have some place to go and your guys don't really die all too easily. So
yeah,
it's kind of bad sometimes when you're looking at a bunch of cudgels in your hand and you're like, well, I have this Maiden, I don't want to invest everything onto, because I know this thing's gonna die eventually, and you just end up looking at these things for a little bit, but it's alright.
Okay. The okay, so I know why this card's in here. It's for the Hall of the Lost King, but it still surprised me to see this card. Lumen Defender, deadly summon. You gain 5 life. Man, this was a trip to see in your sideboard. How'd you choose to pick this card? Like, was it the life gain? Was it the fact that it's pretty good against aggro? Like,
Well, honestly, I did want another life gain effect for Hall of the Lost Kings, because, I mean, I wasn't paying too close attention, but there's only 6, and that's definitely not enough. There should at least be 8, but I just jammed it and said whatever. And the Lumen Defenders gaining 5 life against the aggressive decks is just insane, and having the 1/5 deadly is even more insane. But it is strictly for when you bring in the Hall of the Lost Kings. You have to have something to play beforehand that, like, sure, when you play the mid-range and control matchups, you could just say my opponent's probably just going to do nothing, so I just have to gain some amount of life, but they're probably going to do something, and if they attack you or they try to torch you just to bring you down after seeing the Hall of the Lost Kings, the defender at least put you back up +2 for the Hall of the Lost Kings to actually still trigger. So
okay. Stray, we've gone over. So I was a little, like, I don't know. I'm always a big fan of seeing like 2 or more Flame Stokers. So what was your reasoning for 1, or would you go ahead and change that later on, or?
my reasoning for 1 Flame Stoker was because I wanted to play 2 Hall of the Lost Kings. That's honestly the reason that I went to 1 Flame Stoker, because I knew that I wanted 1 more, like, big type of threat in my sideboard. I didn't know what should be, honestly, and I was looking at a whole bunch of different cards, Taliers, and a whole bunch of just off the wall things. I was just literally looking at everything, and All the Lost Kings is a pseudo moment of creation, but only against certain decks, and when you do jam it and it resolves, and if they don't answer it, you usually just win the game. You just win the game right there. You just go wide. They could play 2 creatures a turn, and you're still gonna hit them for 15 or whatever, so hit them for 10, and then it's just out of control. But Flamestoker is also a card that's really great against Harsh Rule, so I still had to represent Flamestoker for Harsh Rule decks, because, I mean, Hall of the Lost Kings only goes so far.
Fair enough. You don't want 3 7 drops in your deck. You'd rather have 2 7, 1 6 drop. You know.
Yeah, I guess so. We could go with that one. That one sounds better.
Okay, so here's the sideboard in all its glory. I really like some of the cards that, you normally don't get to see a lot of. Lumen Defender in this kind of mid-range deck is usually feels out of place, but guys, I'm telling you, it's definitely worth it when you see a Hall of the Lost King resolve. Oh my god, it's awesome.
When I was playing against Lights Out Ace, he even messaged me. He was like, the combo 2 times. I was like, yeah, I can't even believe it. I got so lucky. And
oh man, I bet that was bad. So we're gonna go back to the main board. We're just gonna finish up with some I think you and me talked about this off camera, but like, how many major iterations? Like, I think you said, like, you just jam the deck together, right?
Well, we were asked what we were going to be playing for the weekend it was like Wednesday in team chat on Discord, and I was saying that I was thinking about playing a moment deck with Shadow in it and whatnot, and I posted a rough draft that Wednesday for, I think it was Tony, and then I played a couple of games with the rough draft on ladder, and it actually felt pretty good, so I wasn't gonna mark it off there. I came back to it again Friday night to throw together a little bit closer of a version that's playable, and I settled on basically what you see and what I had played, minus the strays were just jumping back and forth with devastating setback, and then I had no Mystic Ascendants, and I had the Sabotage, and there was the 4th Banished main deck. So
Okay.
it went through about 1.5 iterations before I landed on what I just played.
Fair enough. I was playing this on stream, and a lot of people were talking about how expensive this deck is with all the legendaries. You know, we're not playing a cheap deck here, and I didn't realize how bad it was. I usually don't when I'm sitting there just ramming cards in a deck and just playing the deck lists. And then I started looking. I was like, wow, this is a lot of legendaries. So, do you have a list, or do you think some of these cards could be substituted for a casual player to be able to play this deck, or do you think it's just not happening?
I don't think that you're able to replace the power level of some of these cards with any other type budget type cards. And granted, I would love to be able to build a budget type friendly deck able to play for casual players and everything like that, but the power levels of these cards are just not able to be met in other cards that are within the game. If they were, you would just play multiples of said other cards with these cards. And I think the best advice I would have for that is just to, as I did, I played over and over again. I played Stone Scar, I played Rakano until I was just able to build up my collection and slowly build towards decks. And if you did want to play a moment deck and you have like your moments ready to go and you have Sandstorm Titan ready to go, but you don't have the other legendaries, I would say just try a Praxis version of it first, or try the Justice version that I think Buckwheat played a long time ago, because I feel like that one could also do some work too, having harsh rules and everything like that. So you might be able to fiddle around with different colors if you wanted to try it, but as far as what I had, the World Bearer Behemoths were there because they dug for lands, which enabled the moments, enabled Mystic Ascendants, helped out with your fixing for Heart of the Vault. The Heart of the Vaults were there because of the power level of a 6/6 that draws a card, reduces it. Mystic Ascendant, thing's insane. So just some things are just really hard to replace.
Yeah, I actually like Iron a lot in this because, like, unlike like Xenon mid-range or aggro, a lot of times where you're just throwing her down on, you know, the instep of your opponent's turn 3 or as a blocker, you know, she's not necessarily used like that in this deck. She's more like, oh, you've killed my, you know, 6/7 or my 6/6. Well, it's time to bring them back as like 9/9s or, you know, 9/10s. Like,
yeah, Iron actually ends up winning the games a lot of the time because if they are able to catch up and at least keep par, play parry and everything like that, and able to deal with everything, you play this Iron and you bring it back and they're just like, well, now I'm out of gas and the thing's bigger than it was before, and this is just a wonderful place for me to be.
yeah, exactly. And like, almost like, okay, so it's a lot different than the primal version where we're trying to rely on moment a lot to win these games. You're already playing creatures that, or units, my bad, units that have to be answered. These are not like 1/1 Temple Scribes that you can take a million hits off of before you have to worry about it. Each one of these units can close the game out pretty fast. So
yeah, I think that was another like advantage of the deck, is that the units in itself, that you could just play units and removal spells and you'll win the game. You don't need moment. You could miss a color. You could just miss it and just play Xenon and just still win the game.
yeah, fair enough. So I think that's it on the questions. I will have this deck list linked below the video. Hopefully y'all get to check that out. Do you have any shout outs? You want to say anything hi or?
Oh, definitely a shout out to the whole SPG team, and I have to thank the people who had put the time and effort into the moment deck, the primal one that was popping up, to put my faith into this one, and I have to thank again Second Blue for putting my faith into Sandstorm Titan again.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but it went away for a little while. Okay. Hopefully, guys, you liked the video. I'm a member of Team Rank Star. Hopefully, y'all check them out. There'll be an article with this video. If you get to see this on YouTube, make sure you go and check out the article. I want to thank Aphelion for making me a member of the Team Rank Star, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And I want to thank SooNo for allowing me to do that. It took a little longer than a few days longer for us to get the video together, but I think it was definitely well worth it.
No. The community should thank you for doing such a thing.
Yeah, well, that's another day. But yeah, if you like the video, I'll have a lot of links down below to get a hold of me, or check the deck list out. So y'all take care, and thank you for watching.